And I think I keep saying that because he really is an amazing God, and you're an amazing person. So an amazing God with an amazing person, it's a match made in heaven. See what I did there? Woo! I'm having fun. Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Commander Esther, and I have the privilege of hosting and just bringing you videos on this channel. If you've been here, if this is home for you, karibu sana for yet another episode of Mondays with Commander. If this is your first time here, we'd love for you to join us and make this your home as well. Just make this the place where you come and you hang out with us on YouTube. Please subscribe, and that's how you just join the family. And it will just please us to have you here, and we'll be happy to know that you're here. This is episode 2 of the new season of Mondays with Commander. And it's just such an honor to bring you content that is curated on the foundations of the Word of God and practical experiences of my life with God and my journey with God, and lessons also that I've learned by observing other people's journey with God and other people's relationships with God. And it just warms my heart every time I'm on your screen. Maybe you're watching me on your TV or on your phone, or you're just listening to me as you go about the activities of your day. But I just wanted you to know that it warms my heart every time I get to share lessons or story times or experiences about God, because God loves you. And contrary to what people are saying out here, God is not mean. He's not a distant God. He is the closest person you'll ever have in your life. He is closest to you than you are to yourself. That's something that I realized the other day, that there are times when God is closest to me more than I am to myself. And if you have that experience, if you have that kind of relationship with God, then you will understand why it warms my heart to come and talk about God to you and with you. But that is not why this video is here today, or that's not why I'm making this video for you today. This video was inspired by a conversation I was having with a few people in my life, my friends, my pastors, and just a community and we were just discussing about waiting on God. And in one of the conversations we were having, guys were sharing lessons that they've learned and things they wished they had known about waiting on God. And it got me thinking, and it inspired me to make this video, because I have also been in that situation or in that season where I've been waiting on God for something. There are times I'm waiting on Him for more than one thing. There are times I'm waiting on Him for just one particular thing, and it made me wonder how many other people have been in that situation where they're conscious that they're waiting on God for something. And also it got me curious to know what lessons people out there have learned about waiting on God, and the things they wished they had known about waiting on God. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your experiences about waiting on God. So please leave a comment. Let me know about your experience in waiting on God. You could have been waiting on Him for a job. You could have been waiting on Him to get married. You're probably still waiting on Him to have a child. Or you have been in that season where you were waiting on God and that waiting season ended. So let me know. Let me know how that season was for you, how that experience was for you, the lessons you learned in that season, and the things you wished you had known in regards to waiting on God and in that season. And I'd love to hear that from you. And that's just the core of this video, or the foundation of this video, to share what my experience has been when it comes to waiting on God, and the lessons that I learned from that season, and what I wish I had known in that season, or before getting into that season, about the season of waiting on God for whatever it is that I was waiting, or I have maybe waited on God for. And I hope that this will inspire you, one, and two, that it will affirm you in whichever season you're in right now, and that maybe you'll borrow one or two things, or maybe you'll relate to one or two things that I will say that are going to equip you. If you're in the waiting season right now, maybe this will equip you right now. You'll find something a tool that can help you in this season, and maybe you're going to grab one or two things that are going to help you, and you'll store them at the back of your mind, so that when you're going into, or whenever you find yourself in a season where it's clear you're waiting on God, you'll remember this video, and you will grab the tools and pick up the tools, and you will emerge victorious from that season. Waiting on God, for sure, is something that is a process that is the hardest thing ever, and I don't think people tell you that. So I'm here to tell you that waiting on God is not easy, but it's also the most beautiful experience that you will ever go through. And I know when I say it's a beautiful experience or a beautiful process, you're wondering, what is wrong with this girl? Waiting on God is such a beautiful process only if your mind is focused, or your perspective is clear. And it's only beautiful if you're present in that moment, or if you're doing it effectively, or if you're open-minded to perceive what God is trying to do in that particular season. If you pay attention, if you're attentive, that's the word I was looking for. If you're attentive while you're in your waiting season, you begin to have experiences and encounters with God and with yourself, that when you're done with that season, when you look back, it becomes such a beautiful, memorable season to have gone through. And I will justify the reason why I'm saying that in this story time. Spoiler alert. If you didn't know this was a story time, then this is a story time. Story time videos are just where we get to share. I get to share stories about my life that have happened, or things that have happened in my life, and how I went through them, and the lessons that I learned. So this is a story time, and it goes way back a few years ago, and it's connected. This story time is connected to another story time I did in season 1 about hearing the voice of God. So if you haven't watched that video yet, I'll link it in the description box below, and you can have a look at it, and you can see my experience about hearing the voice of God, and how God speaks to you to do certain things that clearly don't make sense at times, but he's the one saying it, so you obey, and you end up in a particular phase of life, or in a different space, and you're wondering how you got there, but it's because he spoke. So do watch that video. And today's story time is pegged on a story I gave on that video, and it's about a time in my life when I didn't have a job, or I wasn't unemployed at the time. I was very broke and jobless, and I didn't have none of anything that I'm doing right now. I didn't have a YouTube channel, I didn't have a blog, and it was a time in my life that really tried me. It tried me to the core. It tried me to I don't think I've ever gone through anything as trying as that season in my life. And it's because it happened to be a season that God intentionally used to process me and to develop me to being the version of me that I am right now. And in that season, other than every other thing that I was going through, it was a waiting season for me, because I was waiting on him to I had been praying to get a job, and I was hoping and I believed that I could get a job really quick. If you once you watch that video, you'll understand what I mean. But just to recap, I had been working for a certain organization that was an amazing organization, and then that ended. And so I had given myself, I usually make my friends laugh when I tell them, I had planned out my life, my plan, my how do I put this? I had given God a timeline. So I had told God, I'm resigning in I think it was in Feb or March, a time like this, by the way. So I had just resigned, and I had told God, because of where I'm coming from, because I am Commander Esther, because you're God, and because I'm a good girl, and I'm now working on my relationship with you. So maybe 2 weeks at most, the maximum time I'm giving you for me to be out of work is 3 weeks. I think I'll just take a month, maybe, God. And within that 1 month, I'll visit home. I'll go see my family. I'll take a vacation. I will, I'll just take time and just spend time with myself. I'll catch up with a book or two. I'll just, live my best life and wait to get into the next, to move into the next job. And so I sent out my applications. At that time, I was receiving links to job opportunities that I knew for sure I was qualified for these job opportunities. I was qualified for them. And I knew I had the papers to support the application. My references were amazing. I mean, I had the best referees. I had the best references from where I was working from. And I knew this was just a done deal. These people would look at my resume, they'd look at my papers, and they'd be like, we want her, you're hired. What do you want? Hey, 1 week comes, and it goes, and I'm like, God, you have 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks remaining. So I take a trip back home to go see my family. I spend time with my family. It was an amazing time with them. But then I couldn't shake the feeling of, I felt like disappointment was coming my way. You know how you're just seated and you're like, you're nervous, you're anxious, you don't know how, you can feel something is not right and something is amiss, but you can't put your finger on it. But then, you just shake it off and you're like, maybe that's just my fear speaking. So I went back home, spent time with my family, then came back to my place, and it was a week to the deadline that I had given God to I had given God a deadline, the timeline. So he had a week. So God had a week to fulfill my timeline, to fulfill and act accordingly and be a good God and just match up my timeline. And it was a week too. So I come and I'm going through my emails, and I'm not getting any regret. I'm not getting any congratulatory message or email from the guys I was sending my applications to. If there's ever blue ticks on emails, then I think I got served all the blue ticks in this world, because I think I sent out so many applications, and none of them to date, none of them have ever called or ever written back to say, Commander, we regret to inform you that this position has been filled, or we regret to inform you that we are not hiring, or I don't know. Nothing to date has ever, none has ever written back or responded to tell me no or yes. And so the 3 weeks or the 4 weeks maximum that I had given God came and went, and I was like, okay. Perhaps, God, we were not clear. Perhaps I didn't make myself clear. You see, you see now, I had given you 4 weeks. Okay, fine. Maybe it's these people who are being stubborn. Maybe it's these companies that are being stubborn. So I'll just give you 4 more weeks or 2 more weeks, maximum 2 more weeks. The 2 weeks come and the 2 weeks go, and now it becomes apparent that probably it's not me who's praying well. I'm not praying the deep prayers. I don't know what's wrong with us. We usually think prayers have layers or categories or grades, So I think I was praying grade 1 kind of prayer. So I was like, okay, now let me just intensify. Maybe God, you're not hearing me. Maybe you're not listening to me. Probably you're just, you're receiving so many requests. So let me push on. Let me, where I come from with is anyway. But I was like, let me just press on. Let me just be like the woman in the Bible who was persistent with the king. Let me pray and just push and press on and make sure that you can hear me. And so I decided I'd pray and fast. And I don't know why we usually think that you can manipulate God's will and God's plan for your life if you pray and fast. And I think in heaven, God was like, Kamande, just calm down. But I think he just allowed me to go with emotion so that I can get frustrated in a good way. So I go into prayer and fasting, and I'm praying and I'm fasting. I think I decided to fast for 2 weeks. That had been the longest time I had prayed and fasted in my entire life. It was the first of many long prayers and fasting seasons that I've been through in my life. But that was the first time. And I remember praying and fasting, and I was binding and I was losing, and I was doing the most in this season. And I was like, okay, God, now it's 2 weeks. I've prayed, I've fasted. I have served you in church. At the time, I think I was, what was I doing in church though? Was I? No, I think I was in choir at the time. So I'm like, oh God, I've been going for choir practices. I've been singing my heart out. God, I have been worshiping my heart out for you. I have been praying. I have been fasting. I have been giving. I have been studying my Bible. I mean, what's not happening? So at that time, now the year is time keeps moving, time keeps passing. You're not getting this job, you're not getting a response to your application. You keep applying, and then you end up realizing that you've applied, I think, to all the the available vacancies that you can see online, and there is nothing left for you to do other than to wait. And I remember one particular Sunday I went to church, and I was so angry with God. I was so mad at him because I had used up, I think at that time I was now beginning to feel the pinch of not having an income. So it had now begun to hit my mind that I couldn't just live the way I wanted to live in terms of how I was spending my money or or the places I was going to. And it felt restrictive, and I was so angry with God. When I tell you I was angry with God, I was angry with God. Literally just mad and furious at God, because I couldn't understand why he would have me in a situation where you told me to leave this particular job. I prayed and told you, and I told you I needed to grow in my career. You told me, yes, I will grow, and you'll give me a good job, and you'll give me another job. But I have to leave this particular job that I have. I did that. I obeyed you. And now I'm in a season that feels like I disobeyed you. Sometimes when God asks you to do something, you're left, you sit back and you're like, okay, if God asked me to do that, then I'm going to do it. And then at the back of your mind, you think subconsciously, you're thinking, since you obeyed God, then things are going to flow smoothly. And you're usually, you think that it's going to be a walk in the park. I mean, you obeyed God, so you're doing what God wanted you. You are doing what God wanted you to do. So automatically you expect that things will flow you expect that things will be easy and smooth, and then you face a storm and you're like, yo, did I hear you correctly? Did you say I should do this? Maybe I didn't hear you correctly. And God's like, no. I told you to do this, and you're right where I need you to be. And whatever it is that you're going through, I knew and I factored it in when I asked you to do that thing. So that was the case for me at that time. I thought, but I have obeyed you. You have said do this. I have done it. So why is all this happening? I shouldn't be struggling. I shouldn't be suffering because you told me to do this. And God's like, I need you to wait. And I'm thinking, wait for what? What am I waiting for? The only waiting I'm doing is waiting for our Lord Jesus Christ to come back so that we can go to heaven and I can live in my mansion. So what do you mean that I need to wait? What am I waiting for? And I had so many questions. I'm like, what am I waiting for? What do you mean wait? And God's like, I need you to wait. And I'm like, okay, you see, God, it's like you're not understanding. By the way, if you know me at a personal level, then you probably know how stubborn I can be and how petty I can be. And so I went that route with God. I was so stubborn and petty because I couldn't understand why he would want me to wait. I'm the kind of a person who wants to go and do things. If I'm not doing this, I'm doing this. If I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. And personally, I usually struggle a lot with taking breaks and resting and giving myself time to regroup my thoughts, or I'm always doing one thing or the other. If I'm not at work, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And at that time, that's what I had been doing before. And I think whatever it is that God produced from that season, looking back, I can confidently say that the waiting season was necessary. But let me take you back. So God tells me to wait, and he takes me through a process of teaching me what waiting on him really means. And when I tell you it's the most painful process to go through as a believer, then I really mean it. It's really, ask anyone who has had to wait on God, and they will tell you it's the most painful thing to go through, because waiting is lonely. Waiting exposes things about you that are very unpleasant, because what God does is when he places you in that season of waiting, he uses it as a process to develop you, and he uses it to develop you for yourself, to develop you for whatever it is that he wants you to do. He develops you and uses that season to birth maybe a ministry or a business or something else from your life. And he knows that if he doesn't get your attention by putting you in a state where you're not doing anything, where you're not progressing in anything, or when he places you in a process, in a season where you're literally just stuck, you can't go back and you can't go forward, so you're just there. And he's like, wait on me and I will fulfill whatever it is that you've asked me to do. It reminds me of Abraham. He desired a son, an heir to his just to have someone take after him, take over whatever it is that he had. And God promises him and tells him, I'm going to give you a son and I'm going to make you the father of many nations. At that time, it didn't make sense. And if I were Abraham, and I have been Abraham in that season, where God tells you he's going to do something, and he gives you a promise, and he tells you he's going to do something and fulfill a particular desire that you have, my mind tells me that when God says it, at that time, what my mind was telling me was that if God has said it, then it's going to happen maybe tomorrow, or we think it's going to happen really quick. And thing is, with God, his promises have a timeline, and whatever it is that he says has a time frame that it has to go through or a timeline that it has to go through for it to come to pass. For Abraham, he had to wait for more than 20 years for him to hold Isaac, and in between there was a lot that happened in that waiting season when he was waiting for Isaac. And the same thing with us. When God gives you a promise, from the season between God giving you the promise and you holding the promise, that season in between, that is called the waiting season. And how you emerge when you get, or who you become when the season is over, is highly determined by your attitude and how you go through the season itself. And for me at that time, going back to my story time, is I had to learn, or rather now looking back, the lessons that I learned that have helped me with now different seasons that have come after that. I had to learn that my waiting season is completely unique to me, and it's tailor-made to me, because my waiting season is a process that is going to be used by God for me. He uses that waiting season to develop me. It's not a curriculum, a one-fit-all, one-size curriculum for all of us. It's not a manual that he gives believers and tells you, okay, you guys are going to follow this manual, all of you are going to follow this script. No, he uses different seasons, and he uses the waiting seasons to develop us, because we are different and because we have different assignments in life. And what he uses to develop me might not be what he uses to develop you. And that's something that I did not know at that time. And I remember lessons like being content in your waiting season, because God was asking me at that time, when I was now being petty and stubborn. God was like, okay, fine, you don't have a job right now, but all these other things that you have that were once a prayer item. And I began to learn about contentment, how you can be waiting on God for one thing, but you're also waiting on him with gratitude, and with a heart posture of gratitude. And gratitude comes when you're content in the season that you're in, because whatever it is that you have right now, you're probably waiting on God for a child, and you're married. Yeah, and there was a time that marriage was a prayer point for you. Are you content in the season that you're in right now, as you're waiting on God for that other thing that you're praying for? Let me go into people who in our careers, you're probably waiting on God for a job, and God's like, okay, you are waiting on me for a job, but you did go to school, so you are comfortable looking for a job because you have the papers and you have the credentials and the qualifications to look for a job. That education was at one point a prayer point for you, and it was a season you were waiting on me for. So are you content enough to being in that space, or having whatever it is that you have right now as you're waiting on me to do something else? And being content is not easy, because we are always looking for the next miracle. We are always waiting for the next miracle. We forget to live in the present moment. We forget to live in the now and to enjoy whatever it is that God has given us right now. Lessons like patience. I had to learn how to be patient and to understand that my timeline is clearly not God's timeline. And whatever it is that I consider should happen quickly, to God, it's not going to happen. It's gonna happen, but not with the speed that I want it to happen. And I need to be patient and wait on him, and just trust that he knows I need it, and he's going to come right on time. He says in Isaiah that when the time is right, he himself will make it happen. And so I had to learn how to be patient and to wait for him to declare when it was the right time, because when he says when the time is right, he is going to make it happen. So I had to wait for the time to be right, and this time had to be his time, and he had to be the one to declare and determine whether it was a right time, so that he can make it happen. And trust me, the time that he declared it was the right time for it to happen, I had long forgotten. I was even waiting on him for something. But I had to learn how to be patient. And for you to be patient with God, you've got to be in a place where you know and you can trust God, because waiting on someone is different. Like, waiting on someone is one thing, then there's knowing that this person is going to meet or fulfill whatever it is they said. And trust is a huge component of waiting on God. You've got to trust in God. You've got to know that it might take a year, it might take a month, it might take 7 years, but I know that God is going to fulfill whatever it is that He promised me. And that can only come, or that trust can only come when you learn and when you get to know Him. Because when you get to know Him, you know His character, you know that He's faithful, you know that His word never goes back to Him until it has fulfilled whatever it is He sent it to do. So you are sure of His character and you can trust Him. You can trust that He's going to speak. You can trust Him you can trust that He's going to lead you. Remember the first episode of season 2 about being led by God? You know that God is going to lead you. You can trust that He's going to lead you in the right way. You can trust that He's going to come through for you. So you know He might put you in a waiting season for a year or a month or 20 years, but you know He's going to come through. And knowing that and knowing God's character and trusting in that character fuels, or it births or produces the fruit of patience. And you become so patient with God, you even forget that you are waiting on Him on a particular thing. And the good thing about learning how to be patient while you're in your waiting season is because you can't afford to be crafty. You don't produce Ishmaels while you're waiting for your Isaac. You know, when you're not patient with God, you begin looking for what is it called? You begin looking for solutions to whatever it is that you're looking for in the wrong places. For example, I could have easily taken opportunities that were coming my way because you're waiting on God, and when you're looking at God, you're thinking God is taking His sweet time and He has forgotten you. And so you become crafty. And at that time, the temptation that the devil throws your way is he brings an opportunity that mirrors what you're waiting on God for. And the challenge is, if you take that opportunity, it takes you or leads you away from the path that God had set for you. So you take this opportunity, and because it looks like what you are waiting on God for, you embrace it and you take it, and you're thinking, then maybe God answered it in this particular way. So you take it and you find that you miss the mark. You miss the whole the path that God had wanted you to follow in the first place, and you live and your life unfolds in a different way only because you are not sensitive enough to consult with Him about the opportunity that has come. And that's something that waiting produces or helps develops in us. You become so sensitive to God because you know you're waiting on God for something. So whatever it is that comes your way, or whatever opportunities that you encounter, if they come looking like what you're waiting on God for, you're quick to consult with God and ask Him, is this from you? Is this not from you? Because if it's from you, then I want to take it. If it's not from you, then please take it away from me. And I think when you get to a place where you're praying and telling God to sift through the opportunities that are coming, the things that are coming your way, then at that time, that's when God knows you're really, you're pegged on Him completely. So you learn how to be sensitive, you learn how to seek clarity from God. Your life has, or you receive a lot of clarity when you're in your waiting season. I was talking to a friend of mine when I was thinking about this episode, and I was asking her about her waiting season. And for her, she was also waiting on God in one particular season of her life. She was waiting on God for a job as well. And at that time, she was praying to get opportunities where she could apply and get another job. And when she was in that season, God asked her why she needed a job, and she was like, but I need a job because I need an income, I need to make money, all these reasons that we have for looking for a job. And God was telling her, I don't need you to be employed for you to make money, and I need you to wait on me because I want you to be a business owner. And she couldn't understand what God meant by that. A few weeks down the line, or I think a few months down the line, God started reminding her about business ideas she had written down. And when she started going through the business ideas and what she was praying about when it came to doing business and being an entrepreneur, she realized that all along she had always wanted to be a business owner or an entrepreneur. But now, because we end up being crippled by thinking we have to work for someone so that we can make money, she had shelved the whole business idea. So she started reviving the business idea. She started reviving the vision of owning a business, and she started it out of faith. She just stepped out and started her business, and she's running a successful business right now. She has employed people, and later is when God was revealing to her how he needed her to be in that waiting season so that he could get her attention and he could reveal to her what the intention behind her career was. She was meant to be a business owner because through her, a business could be created, and through her, she could feed other people by employing them and providing a source of livelihood to them. And all this wouldn't have been possible had she been employed or had she gotten what she thought she wanted. And that was a huge lesson for me as well, because we usually don't pay attention to what our purpose is in life. And God places us in seasons where we are waiting on him, and he places us in seasons where we seem and we feel stuck, but yet he uses that to shed more light about our assignments in life and about the purpose that he has for our lives. Within taking you back to my story time, within that season when I was waiting on God, that's when God was speaking about the YouTube channel. That's when he gave me the YouTube idea. That's when he gave me an idea to start my blog. I really love writing, and he instructed me, or he led me to starting my blog, and that was the first platform I started. And I remember being now so busy or having so much to do when it comes to the blog at that time that I even forgot I was looking or waiting on God for a job. That season for me shifted so quickly because I found my purpose. I found something else that I could do with that time that I was waiting on God for within that time. And I started writing and I started creating content for my blog. And all of a sudden, I didn't have enough time. It's funny how you're in a season where everyone thinks you have all the time in the world, but clearly you find something and you're like, oh, I thought I had a lot of time, but now I do not have that much time. And I started writing, and I started creating all this awesome content for my blog. And at that time, that's when my purpose in life began. God was shedding more light on what he had created me to do in life, what my purpose was in life. And a few months after I started writing, actually, I got a job. Funny, as he just opened a door, and I'm like, where have these people been all my life, all this entire year? Where have you been? I was looking for a job, and now you're here, and now I don't. It was just a whole awesome experience at that time. But when you're in your waiting season, God provides a lot of clarity for us in that season. That's when you learn what you're supposed to do. That's when you learn how to do certain things, because at times you're waiting and God gives you new ideas to do what you were previously doing, or you create something completely new. I had so many lessons that I learned from that time, and probably we'll do another video on the lessons on waiting on God, and probably we'll have a guest on set. But one thing I would really love to end this video with is the things that I wish I knew when it comes to waiting on God. And I really wish I knew that waiting on God is never announced. It's not a switch. It's not a button where you switch on or off, and then or an alarm where you're told, okay, maybe in a week or in 2 weeks you're going to get into a waiting season. It's never announced. You're never told that you're going to be in a waiting season. You just find yourself in a season where things are not working out as you had hoped they would be working out, and then when you dig deeper you realize, oh boy, I am in a waiting season. And I wish I knew that it was not announced, because then I wouldn't have been so frustrated realizing that I was in a waiting season. I wish I knew that waiting is just part of life as a believer, or even as a person, as a human being, basically, because we're always waiting for something. Whether you're a Christian or not, we're always waiting for something. I know we have this notion that we are the microwave generation that wants things announced today and then they happen immediately. But waiting on God is not, you cannot microwave the process. You can't speed it up. And I wish I knew that. I wish I knew that waiting on God has its own timeline. Waiting on God is unique to his own plan for my life. So the time that I will spend in my waiting season is completely different from the time that you will probably be waiting on God for. I wish I knew that resentment is such a buzzkill when it comes to waiting on God, because in my waiting season, when I was waiting on God to get a job, the people around me, my friends at the time, were excelling in their careers. They were excelling. When I say excelling, I mean excelling. We were straight from campus, but these guys were working for the most amazing organizations. They were getting poached left, right, and center. Some of my friends actually were moving from home, our country, to other countries, and they were living the best life. According to me, they were living the best life in their careers. They were getting promotions left, right, and center. And in that season, the line is so thin when it comes to relationships in regards to waiting on God, because you start comparing your life to theirs or to the people in your life, and you start comparing if you're waiting on God, let's just use my case as an example. You're waiting on God for a job, so you start comparing your career life to the career life of your friends, and when you look at their lives, they're excelling and they're doing great, and instead of being happy for them, you begin to harbor resentment, and you start looking down on yourself, and you start feeling so much pity for yourself, and you start wondering, has God abandoned you? Has God forsaken you? What's happening? Why is God favoring them more than you? Why is God showing up for them and not for you? And funny thing is, when I was going through that season, there's this quote people like sharing when they say, if you see people around you having breakthroughs or good things happening, I think it's good. I don't remember the exact words in the quote, but it's just a quote around, if you see people in your life going through good things, or if good things are happening to the people in your closest to you, then just know that God is in the neighborhood. And he's going to do, and you're next, and he's going to do the same for you. At that time, it didn't really make sense. And at that time, I was like, no, I don't want him in the neighborhood. I want him in my house, in my hood, in my in my room. I want him in my house. I want him to do those good things in my house. I don't want him in the neighborhood. Okay, fine, he's in the neighborhood, but can he at least quickly just show up at my door? Maybe today, maybe this week, perhaps. And I realized it was so easy to mess up relationships in that season, because comparison makes you really resent whatever it is that is happening in the things that are happening in the lives of the people around you, because you begin comparing yourself to them. And let me tell you, when you're waiting on God, the last thing you want is to ruin relationships. When you're in that waiting season, you need a strong support system, or you need to be surrounded by people who understand who you are and understand what you're going through, and they can cover you and pray for you and just be there and be the support that you need. So ruining relationships when you're waiting on God is no, don't do that. So just check on yourself. Check on how you're feeling. Maybe you're waiting on God for a child, and when you're looking around you, your friends are, they're having babies left, right, and center, and you're wondering, is it that this neighborhood perhaps has an invisible border, or and it can be quite a painful thing to go through when you now start resenting and hating on what other people are going through. That's how jealousy comes in, envy, and then you start ruining relationships, you start destroying relationships, you start pushing away people because you don't want whatever it is that is happening in their lives to be a constant reminder of what you're lacking. Waiting on God, I wish I knew that it was lonely. That's all I'm going to say. Waiting on God is lonely, because remember, you're in this season by yourself. It's just you and God, and you're waiting on Him for something that only you and Him can understand. Only you and Him know the weight of whatever it is that you're going through, or whatever it is that you're waiting on Him for. So no one else understands what you're going through. And remember when I said waiting seasons are never announced? So your neighborhood, your friends, they did not, or they're not aware that you're in a waiting season. So they also don't know what's happening in your life. They're trying to understand what's happening in your life. So chances of them not being available for you in that season are very high, and it's not their fault. It's they're going through their lives, and they're dealing with life normally, and they're wondering what's happening in yours. And because you also don't know what's happening in your life, you're not in a capacity to explain to them what's happening. So there's this whole how do I put this? There's just a lot of uncertainty that is going about your life, and going through that, you just have to go through it alone. And going through that can be very lonely. And if you don't have the right perspective towards the waiting season, then that's how you start getting frustrated, and that's how depression kicks in, and that's how you start pushing people away, like I said, and you start drawing yourself and withdrawing from other people, and you end up in a place where it's just you and you're alone. So when the waiting season ends, you now don't have a place to fall back to. You don't have people to fall back to because you pushed them away. But just know waiting on God is very lonely, and that season is very lonely, but at the end of the day, like I said, it becomes very beautiful. Waiting on God, I wish I knew that it's a process He uses, like I say, to develop you. And when it's all said and done, one thing I've learned is He produces a version of you that you cannot compare to the version of you that you were before the season started. And I wish I knew that. I would have maybe paid more attention to the lessons He was teaching me in that time. But it's never too late. God will always take you back to class if you missed something. But I wish I knew it was a process He was using, because I would have actively been present in that moment. I would have taken the lessons God was teaching me in that season very seriously. I would have grabbed every lesson I learned in that time. Lessons like seeking Him, lessons like studying the Bible, lessons like being kind to people, showing up for people. I wish I had grabbed those lessons, and I wish I knew it was a process He was using to work on me, because I would have been so intentional in that season. And that's one thing I'd really want you to know, that when you're in your waiting season, it's a tool that God is using to work on you. So be attentive, be present, and be intentional with be intentional in that season, so that you can see the lessons that He's trying to teach you, because there's a lesson in every day. There's a lesson with every experience and with every encounter that you go through. the last lesson that I would love to leave with you is that whatever it is that you're waiting on God for will come to pass. It will come to pass. I know you're waiting on God for something, and it's been probably years. For some, it's been months. For some, it's been hours. Or maybe you're watching this video and you prayed in the morning and now it's 11 and you're watching Commander speak and you're like, Commander, I prayed in the morning and I'm still waiting on God. Maybe you should wait maybe a few more minutes. It's gonna come. But the point is, as an individual, you have different waiting seasons. As one person, you could be waiting on God for different things, and different things have different times. I waited on God to get a job. In that season, I waited on God to get a job for a year. There are certain things, other things that I've waited on God for as Kamande for over 15 years, over 20 years actually. But I'm not that old. But you get the point. I have waited on God for things for months. There are times I've waited on him for something for a day. You just pray in the morning and you're like, oh God, please. And then he shows up and he answers the prayer. There have been things I've waited on him, like I said, for more than 20 years. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 2 years. So pay attention to everything that you're waiting on God for, and then observe the time frame. You don't, just because you're you, let's say just because I'm Kamande, doesn't mean that everything that I'm waiting on God for will always be a year. No, there are things I'll wait on him for a year, there are things I'll wait on him for 10 years, there are things I'll wait on him for 5 years, for 5 months, for 5 minutes, but the comforting thing is that at the end of the process, at the end of the season, you will eventually hold whatever it is that you're waiting on God for. If you're waiting on God, if God gave you that promise, you can take it to the bank. He is going to fulfill whatever it is that he gave you. If he is the one who gave you that promise, if he told you he's going to give you that job, if he told you he's going to give you that marriage, if he told you he's going to give you that child, that's the promise that he has given unto you. Hold on to it. Between the time you hold on to it to when you hold your promise, when the promise actually becomes a reality for you, in between, try and wait effectively. I know it's hard, like I said, but it's a beautiful process to go through. And what makes it beautiful is knowing that God is going to fulfill his word. He's going to fulfill his promises. God never lies. Trust me, God has never. If there's one thing about God that I really admire and honor, is his faithfulness. And when he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. It might take a year, it might take 10 years, it might take a whole 50 years, but he's going to do it. And all he needs for us is to wait on him and to just be active and to participate in that waiting season. Ask God, okay, fine, I am in this waiting season and I have established that I am waiting on you, and I have established that in this neighborhood that you're in, chances are you're not going to come right now. So what is it that I need to learn? What lessons are you trying to teach me in this particular season? What character traits are you trying to develop in me? What are you trying to achieve with me and in me in this season? You might just be surprised. A YouTube channel can come from your waiting season. A whole ministry will come from your waiting season. At the end of the day, you will come out of your waiting season with so much more than what you went in with. So just know that God is faithful. Know that whatever it is that he told you he's going to do, he's going to do. And know we're in a very uncertain season in the world. We're just facing disappointments left, right, and center. And I know we're in Q2 of 2021. And I know you're wondering, God gave me a promise in January or in last year, and he told me in 2021, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And now we're in April, the second week of April. And you're wondering, are you going to come through like you said you're going to come through? Trust me, God is going to come through. He is faithful. He's going to come through. Whatever he told you he's going to do is going to happen pandemic or no pandemic, lockdown or no lockdown, he is going to fulfill everything that he told you he's going to do. It might not happen the way you want it to happen, but it's definitely going to happen. I feel like I have rambled and I feel like I've said a lot, but it warms my heart, like I said, to just be that reminder and that echo to remind you that that God loves you. Oh, God loves you so much, and he's pleased by you. There is nothing that you will ever do that will ever change God's mind about you. He loves you. He loves you when you're at your best, when you're at your worst. He loves you when you're consistent or when you're not consistent. He loves you. Bottom line is, he loves you. Whether you're petty like me sometimes or stubborn like me, or whether you love being in control like me, or maybe you're just laid back, I don't know. He loves you as an introvert. Hi. He loves you as an extrovert. He loves you in all that you are, and he just wants you to get close to him. He wants you to get to know him. He wants you to experience him in a way that you've never experienced him. And he created people like Kamande and he gave us platforms like this so that we could be here to remind you that he really loves you, and he wants you to be a victorious child here on earth. He also has a purpose for you, and he wants you to fulfill it, and he wants to be part of it, and he wants to be part of your life. And he's an amazing God. And I think I keep saying that because he really is an amazing God, and you're an amazing person. So an amazing God with an amazing person, it's a match made in heaven. See what I did there? Woo! I'm having fun. Anyway, I will see you in my next video. I can be silly sometimes, trust me. You want to stick around to see me in my silly element. I can be silly, but to see that, please subscribe. It's somewhere down below, and please subscribe to my blog as well. It's www.estherkamande.com. Sometimes when I'm not really feeling the talking vibe, I write a lot. And when I say a lot. So please subscribe to my blog as well. There's a link down below, and get to read. There's a lot that I write that doesn't come on camera. So maybe you're a reader and you have friends who read, you can send them to my blog. And please share this video if it made sense. And I'm hoping it made sense. I really pray it made sense. If it made sense, and if it inspired you, if it blessed you, if it affirmed you, if it was a good video, give it a thumbs up, and please share it with someone who you know could be in need of it. They're probably in a waiting season and they're probably feeling frustrated. Tell them, hey, Kamande has something for you to listen to and to watch, and I hope they won't be disappointed. I won't embarrass you in front of your friends. I promise. I really promise. But yeah. Thank you for being here. I do this because of you, and I do this because God loves you, and because he gives me these ideas to talk about with you, and I love hanging out with you. And now I think I'm just going to shut up and just say bye. So thank you. Bye. Thank you for being here.